Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Developers End podcast, where we talk about everything in the games industry, but from the eyes of two indie devs. My name is Siavash, aka Rainy, and my co-host is Sydney, aka Fem. This way. And I still need to flip my camera around. Yeah, you're somewhere around.
I'm somewhere on the screen.
So on these episodes, we have an How to Indie episode, which we do every 2 weeks, and then in between those, we do a State of Industry. But this time around, we wanted to talk about our own game. So
the state of our own industry.
The state of our own industry. So SunnySide is out. Hooray!
Woohoo!
Big, massive thank you to both the team, the incredible team that helped us create this game, and also all of our amazing community managers, but also all of you. If you uttered the word SunnySide in your life, we thank you for that. Not just for people who purchased the game or something like that. Yeah. So if you had thought about our game at some point, thank you. It's been a crazy 3 weeks for us. 3 weeks, Sid? Yeah, 4 weeks, 3 weeks, right?
I have no idea.
Well, we released 14.
What is time?
What is time? Honestly, it's been an absolutely crazy time since release, and we learned a lot of. I'm not going to say lessons, but we learned a lot of ways to go about things since release, and
we learned a lot of ways to not go about things, and also I think this is like you said as well. This is the best opportunity to give everybody some hot experience, hands-on experience from just releasing a game. Also, this is the episode that I invite all of you to leave a comment down below and put your own questions about us, about our experience. And I do want to do a quick plug here as well, because it's very relevant. We do stream on Twitch occasionally, we kind of revitalized our Twitch, and I stream there with Sydney sometimes. The developer streams, they're a bit more relaxed, but you can come into the chat and ask your questions there. So if you are a game dev, please come over. It doesn't have to be about SunnySide. So long as it's about game development, I'm more than happy to answer it. So that's twitch.tv/RainyGames UK. Feel free to have a check. But yeah, what are we talking about with SunnySide? I mean, kind of, we've spent all this time kind of talking with people about how do you put an indie game together? How do you build it? How do you market it? How do you make a company and all this stuff? And what's going on with my camera?
You went blurry. You're fine now.
Yeah, because I keep doing this because I'm looking at my keyboard for some reason. So, you've done all this stuff to get your game out, and then I don't want to set people up for this expectation of well, your game's out, you're done, you're free, go fly.
No.
There's so much work that has to happen after you release a game. And so I kind of just want to talk about it. Not just what happened to us, but what are some things that you, as somebody who's looking to launch a game, what can you expect to happen?
Your responsibilities
so that when it does happen, you're not totally shocked and surprised and confused and whatever. So,
Don't be caught with your pants down, essentially.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it. I think the place to start is what does release day look like? Terrifying. Because in a way, it really is as easy as you're hitting a button and your game is out in the world. But there's so much stuff that you have to do to lean up to it, because just because your game is live doesn't mean people are going to find it.
Yeah.
So there's all that marketing that we had to do. And the reason we haven't had a podcast in so many weeks is because the game was done, but we had to, there's a trailer you have to make, and you have to put together your marketing plan and influencer outreach, and there's so much organization that has to happen.
Post-launch support, community management.
So community management, and one of the things that we had to do is kind of redesign our whole Discord around what's going to happen when we have an influx of people, which we did. I think we had 1,500 new people join our Discord.
I think it's more than that. We were at 6K before, right before launch.
We were at 7, I think.
Are you sure?
We had I think we had just hit 7.
Okay, we're at 8.2 now, so yeah.
Yeah. So, what does professional Discord look like? There's so many things to kind of prep for. And sure, you can adjust to it as they come along, but
the more prepared you are for those changes, the better off you're going to be. So you're not. The thing I didn't want to be scrambling on the day of release.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to hit the button and then go sleep and not have to worry about.
Didn't really happen, did it?
No.
No.
Because Felicia Day ended up streaming our game on release day, and that was stressful as hell.
We were freaking out.
But yeah, we were freaking out. But I guess I think where I wanted to go with that for like what you need for release day is make sure leading up to it you have your, influencers are so important to games now. So you need to put in the work that the week or 2 or 3 weeks before of like getting things out to influencers. And you want to get it to them early so that they have time to play it. So ideally you're getting it out to them a week-ish before launch. If you have connections to media outlets, cool. Definitely use those. If you don't, know influencers or you haven't made any of those connections, Lurk It is a great resource for people. You can put your game on Lurk It and it helps influencers even find your game. So that would be a nice thing for people to try out and get that all set up. So that because the worst thing that can happen is you hit launch and nobody buys it. Right?
Yeah, actually, that's
so
fair.
you have to have that marketing set up so that people will buy it. Hopefully your community, obviously, if you've put in the work to build one like we did. So once your game releases, then the next big thing is community.
I was going to go through bug fixes, but you can't get there before community. You're right.
Community's first.
Community's first, absolutely.
And that was the thing is, you had the benefit release day. You left. You went and slept.
I did.
Me and the mods were taking care of the community all day. And organizing that influx of bug reports or people having problems. Maybe they can't get the game to start, or we had the benefit of having the demo out. And so we had found a lot of those issues before they became major issues. Primarily, we were able to, we had an issue. We still have an issue with,
saving
for some reason, antivirus software has been a problem for us. So we at least knew that was a problem so that our mods were ready for it. When people came and asking about it, they had responses.
So here's the thing. The week of the release is obviously the busiest you're going to be. Now, no matter how prepped the game is, like we finished the game a few days before it went live. We weren't pushing patches up to the release hour because that is not a good idea.
It's dangerous.
It's dangerous. So we had the build ready, but it still was the busiest week. Now, amongst all of that, one of the things that we did was we put together a bit of a community team. We already had some mods on Discord, but we sat down and had a chat with the ones that have been modding for like the past 3 years. And we said, hey, this is about to become a full-time job. Are you sure?
You ready?
Are you ready? We had a few of our mods that decided to kind of take a bit of a step back and just kind of, they're still mods, but they're not like one of the active mods in the team. And we put together, Hidden in the Leaves, Erica, she actually joined as a...
shout out to Erica.
Shout out to Erica, always. She joined as an internal QA. We work with a QA company as well, but we just have an internal one that we can communicate with right away. She actually, we offered her the role of community management. She took it. And so we thought we had everything ready, right? But it wasn't enough. It was not enough because we did not have a Steam team. Enough. We thought that, some of our people could go handle that. Our publisher, Benny from Merge, was the one that was replying to some comments in the past on Steam, as well as Mayumi from Merge as well. But they were both also very much overwhelmed. One with the actual job of having to do the marketing side of things for SunnySide, but also it was just way too many. So it was not enough. So pretty much within the first 2 weeks, we put out an application. We recruited like 5-6 more people. Some people only focus on Steam. Some people only focus on Discord. Some people only focus on certain aspects of Discord. And then we haven't done it officially. Like there's no document PDF you can go read. But we have put together procedures, SOPs, as Sydney likes to call them, standard operating procedures, on what to do. It's like... It's almost like, again, like I said, it's not a PDF yet. It should be. But it's like a little notebook that you can go to and read whenever you're not sure what to do or when something's going wrong, to how to approach things. Now, I said all of that.
How to answer certain questions. And
yeah, we're going to come back to community management.
People.
But it's such a big topic, I think we're going to have to split it. So I'm going to talk about bug fixes and we come back to community management. But essentially, I'm going to get it to a point where we can switch topics. Community management, you need all these people. If you have a Discord community, have a few channels. It depends on the size of
your community.
It really depends on the size of your community as well, But if you do have more than 500-600 people, and if your game is successful, God forbid, then you're gonna need to be ready for the bug reports that come in. If you have a Discord, make sure to make a forum, utilize the forums. Again, we'll get back to that in a second once I'm done with the bug thing. Have a section in your Discord that people can go and report bugs, because a lot of the times you would be surprised that people are reporting things that aren't even bugs. They might have not understood the system correctly and they thought it was a bug, or it might have been a user error. So you need to have people ready to help diagnose it as much as they can. Right there. So like, it's kind of like going to the doctor, right? At least in the UK, you don't go to a professional expert when you feel sick. You go to a GP, a general practitioner. Then the general practitioner will then refer you to an expert in the field that you need help with. So
you guys have an even cooler thing where you can call in. And just be like, and that's what we need that in the US, but that's kind of, that's what our mods are. Our mods aren't even the GP. Our mods are the people you call into. And for those of you who aren't in the UK and don't know this, in the UK, you can, if you're sick, you can dial 111 and, hey, I have these couple symptoms. Do I need to see a doctor? Is this an actual problem? And they'll be like, yeah, that sounds like a problem. You can come in. Or no, that's a common cold. Take this, and this, rest, you'll be fine. And it's a thing that definitely doesn't exist in the United States. In the US, your friend or your mom that you call. And you're like, hey, Mom, I have these symptoms. What do I do? And then she'll be like, go to the doctor. It's
fun fact, when
all
I was
in
sick,
your head. Don't worry about it.
When I got sick, Lauren called 111 and they were like,
I know.
We're sending an ambulance over now.
Guess who told her to call 111?
You did,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the story for another day. Yeah, they're
our mods kind of act as that of like, have you tried this? Have you looked at this? Okay, that actually is a bug. Why don't you go ahead and go report it? Or, oh no, it's not a bug. We're just reading the system wrong, which is fine. I mean, if you have a small community, you can be that person. But once you start getting into the multi-hundreds, the thousands, you really want at least one other person. Because we're a little bit bigger than that. We have like 6. And it really helps the community. But you don't need to be that person for the entire life of your game, right? There's a point where you're spending those first few weeks, months, kind of training your community, as weird as that sounds, so that they know the answers.
Well, at some point,
so that there's a point where you can step back, and then they can help each other. So now we're at the point where people are coming in and asking questions, and the community can step up because they're knowledgeable enough to kind of,
So what are you doing when you aren't interacting with the community? Is working
You're fixing the bugs.
You're fixing the bugs. You're improving the game. Even if your game is bug-free by some miracle, you're still improving
here's the thing. This is the thing I want to tell all indie developers and all people who play video games. There are no video games in the world that are bug-free. Just get that expectation.
Haven't come across it.
Get that expectation out of your head. You can go all the way back to, Nintendo games, Game Boy games. We wouldn't have speed running if bugs didn't exist. So it's a part of it. It's a part of software, and it's something that you just have to accept that you're not going to get all of them. And it's something that I think to a level gamers have to kind of accept too. Yes, there are bugs that need to be fixed. Yes, there are bugs that absolutely need to be addressed. But there should never be an expectation developers are going to get all of them. It's just not. it's just not going to happen. Especially the bigger the game,
and especially the smaller the
have.
team is as well. You got to always consider that as well. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but you got to fix the bugs that you can fix, and you have to fix the ones that bother gamers the most.
That's the thing.
You know?
So essentially, once you do that, and like we said, it's not that you should just refrain from interact with the community at all. Even if you have a massive community, you can still interact with them from time to time, but time won't permit you to like just look at every single discussion that's happening.
No.
And at the same time, you shouldn't, because once you do that, then one, people will expect you to always be present, and two, it kind of creates a bit of a problematic environment where sometimes people might just not feel comfortable because they think that the watchful eyes of the developer is always on the chat. So just kind of lean back, let them do their thing, especially once the community starts helping each other out, you're going to have a much better time. Now, once you get your team in place, give them instructions to how to handle these and try to diagnose bugs as much as they can. And your community manager should be the person that puts together a list for you of the most requested features, most reported bugs, and some of the biggest pain points of the game. Now, something can just not be a bug. We actually did this last week. Something cannot be a bug, but it's a complaint, and people are really annoyed by it. And if it's said too many times, then you should focus on it and come back to it. So prioritize those, have a look at those. And it's not just a matter of how many people are reporting it. You should be smart about approaching it yourself. Now, obviously, if you've been working on your game for a long time, you kind of already created that mindset of how to approach bugs anyway. It's always a battle before release between simplicity, how easy it is to fix, and how much of an impact it is going to have on the game and how critical it is. So once the game comes out, you need to add an extra criteria to that, and it is how painful it is for the community, how annoying it is, how many people are asking for it, and that will help you prioritize it. Again, if you're not a game developer and you're just listening to this out of curiosity, we're not saying you shouldn't fix bugs that only happen to a few people. You should absolutely do that, but it's all about priority, because time is short and you need to get these patches out as soon as you can. You shouldn't stop releasing a patch for 500-600 people just because you couldn't fix that bug that happens to 2 or 3 people. That's not a good idea. You should prioritize them and get them out as you can in those criteria that I just mentioned. And another thing, sorry, go ahead.
Wait, hold on. Slow down, take a breath.
I'm going really fast, aren't I?
Yeah, you're like, I'm on a roll. I think too, kind of thing to point out is not everybody's going to have a community manager.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of you guys, you know, if you're putting out your first game, you know, maybe it's a couple dollars, maybe you've got 100 people in your community. You don't need a community manager. You can do it. It's something that I think over time you're going to build up to. We're kind of at that point because we're dumb and we jumped into the deep end way too fast. And so we had to do a bit of scrambling, especially at the last minute, to make sure that we were prepped for it. But that's not going to happen to everybody. And don't kill yourself if you don't have one. At the end of the day, I'll kind of pass on to you something that I learned working at Disneyland, is that people are going to wait. You know, as terrible as it sounds, there has to be a realism attached to your time is valuable. And you don't owe everybody your time. And people will wait for things that they want. And it sounds a little conceited, but it's something that I think just all humans have come to accept as a part of anything creative. And so at Disneyland, the reason they told us that is because you're going to have 10, 20, 30 people in line, and you're going to put this pressure on yourself that you need to kill yourself to get everybody as happy as you can. But it's just not a realistic expectation. And it's the same thing with your time as a developer. If you've got a small game or if you have a big game, you don't have to be everywhere all at once. You don't have to be everything to everybody all at once. You don't have to answer every single question. You can prioritize your time in ways that work best for you. It's something that I think a lot of developers fall trap. It's like a trap that we fall into. of you feel like you have to answer every question. You feel like you owe everybody a full explanation. And the truth is, even as much as you want to, it's not realistic to expect yourself to do that kind of thing. And you can look at game developers who have tried to do that and have failed as a result. Yandere Dev is a really great example of why you can't be everything to your community. What was that other one? It's like Chronicles of Illyria was another great example of trying to explain everything. And I'll never forget, there was a blog post that he put out of like, I spend all day answering your guys' emails and questions, and it keeps me from making the game. And I just want to be like, well, then stop doing it.
Yeah,
you know.
That's
and
don't do that.
So kind of a message to gamers too is we don't have time. If you want us to fix the bugs, if you want us to make the game better, if you want us to respond, and I think most gamers do already understand and accept this, that we can't be everywhere at once. So it's not realistic for developers to expect it from ourselves either. So it's okay if you're small. It's okay to just get to what you have time for. If that means you spend an hour every day answering questions and looking at things, and maybe it's 20 minutes to half an hour at the end of the day, that's great. You don't need to be sitting in your Discord all day, you know, answering questions and responding to things and whatever. So that's just kind of a community management standpoint. It's the same thing for the bugs too. You don't have to fix all the bugs day one, you know. Set yourself up with some kind of
it takes time. You need to put together a roadmap, and I think we're gonna probably touch on that in a minute too. But
a little bit,
I'm going to kind of wrap up the bug fixing and patch releasing plan and stuff quickly. Like I said earlier, it's not always bugs. Sometimes it's quality of life improvements.
Yeah.
But sometimes, and more than often, it's actually a pain point for the players. It's just game
design issues.
A game mechanic they don't like. So there are ways that you can go about improving that. For example, for us, there was a simple one that happened, and we changed it, and everybody's been happier since.
Well, actually, before you get into it, I do want to explain one thing. And I've said it took me 2.5 weeks to remember this. And I had said this in an original podcast that we had done, which is the moment you start asking for money for your games, the game stops being yours. It's now belongs to the player. And you have a bit of a responsibility to create a game that players are going to like and enjoy. To an extent. You don't have to give them everything, but that is why you're making the games, for people to like it. And the first step is being okay with the idea that what you have designed and made may not be something that everybody loves. And the hard part is going to be determining what is worth changing and who you listen to. You cannot listen to everybody because people are going to have contradictory requests, right? Some person's going to say your game is too big. Some person's going to say it's too small. Some person's going to say the graphics aren't good enough. Somebody's going to say they're too good for what you're doing. Everybody's going to have contradictory opinions. So you have to look at what's coming in, all the feedback that's coming in, and say what lines up with my original ideas and intent, what is going to make my game better for everybody or for the most people. You have to kind of do some triage for all of that feedback that you're going to get. And once you triage everything and you kind of organize it, then you can actually step in and start making those changes. And one of the ones, like Rainy was going to start saying before I interrupted him, you're going to talk about the house.
Yeah. So one of the pain points that we got noticed, people were saying, is that you get a house too late in the game. So this was actually very interesting because, like Sydney said, there was contradictory kind of input coming in from the community. Some people loved that it would take a long time for you to get to a point where you can have a house.
Some people hated it.
Some people really hated it. That if I quote the community as a whole, they hated that they would get a house after they would get a chicken coop. They wanted to have a house before the chicken coop. We did a bit of kind of research on our own, trying to figure out why this is a problem. And I still don't know if that's the case, but I personally came up to the idea that in a lot of farming games, the tradition is for you to have a house set up
at the very start of the game. So I think a lot of players come in with the expectation that they're going to at least have a house to then solve this issue. Now,
whereas from our perspective, when designing it, we're looking at the theory of building, right? So as the player character, the main character in the game, it's unrealistic to expect that you would have the abilities to build a house when you've never built anything in your life. So for us, it was like you start off by like repairing a broken building, which is the tea house, and then you create something from scratch, which is the chicken coop, and it's smaller, and then it was the house. And so for us, for me, that was something that made sense, right? There's like a progression of skill.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, even though they understood that, they still wanted the house first.
Yeah.
And it was something that I know I struggled with accepting as something that we needed to change. And I had to step back and go, okay, what does this mean for the game? Does it contradict any of our initial goals? Does it contradict any of the ideals that we're trying to kind of put into the game or what it's built off of? The ultimate answer was no. If it makes the player happy, it makes the player happy. If it, at that point, the next question is how hard is it to implement?
Yeah. And
thankfully
just
for us,
kind
it
of,
was pretty easy.
To just kind of build up on your opinion, Sydney said, once you sell a game, it's their thing. They can do whatever they want with it and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, fun is a very important thing.
Yeah.
So try to be a bit more lenient with your creativity. This is an industry where your consumer is the most interactive with the art piece. So let them in. Just kind of be a bit more lenient with what makes them happy as well as you. But that's actually a very good segue.
But don't be too lenient.
Yes, that leads to a very good segue. So I set all of this up to get to a very, very important point for all of you indies out there. And it's the fact that utilize the power of your community. Yeah. We were unsure about the house because we knew some people aren't going to be happy with the fact that you are getting a new house and it might ruin the progression. But at the same time, we knew that a lot of people also wanted the house. So we put a poll up. If you do have a Discord community, create a poll channel, create a community poll channel. One, people love being involved, feeling involved with the development of your game. And two, it really helps you also figure out what to do. So don't underestimate the power of polls. Another good thing about polls is that people are still going to discuss it, people are still going to comment on it, and then you're going to have a discussion on the side happening. But at the end of the day, the poll is a numerical representation of what is the majority. So you can have an hour-long discussion with the community about your decision, but at the end of the day, you can look at the poll and see what the answer is. Yeah. And yeah, that's what happened to our patch, and that's how the house came along.
And that's not to say that, if you put a poll out, you have to do exactly what the community says. If that's how you want to do it,
it's just data. It's then up to you what you do with it. But it's a great
way, especially because it's something that we've run into a lot with when we were designing Sunnyside was just Rainy and I having contradictory opinions on things. And so for us, it always kind of came to, well, if we can't decide, let's let the player choose.
Yeah.
Because if we can't decide, then it's very possible that no matter which one we choose, somebody's going to be angry. So we might as well give multiple options in the game and let people choose. That's how we got RPG versus cozy mode. So it's kind of the same thing with we ended up implementing a starter house. And it's not mandatory. It's not one of the mandatory blueprints you have to build. It's just a thing that is there if you want it. So for people who like the progression as it is, they can pursue it. For the people who want that starter house, they have access to it. So in any way that you can, definitely get opinion from the community, but at the same time, you are also the mastermind of the game, right? You know the whole structure, you know the big picture, you know what kind of game you're trying to make. So you are going to be the person who's best to make the decision. But you utilize the community as a way to make the decision, I guess, or gauge what people are going to be happiest with or angry with, or vice versa, or whatever. So, because there are other things because there are other things that we know the community wants and they're going to ask for, and we could put a poll out and I already know what the answers are going to be. That doesn't mean we're going to do it because we don't have the time, we don't have the money, we don't have the ability, So kind of use it with caution.
Yeah.
Because if you put out polls for everything, you're also creating expectation with your community that that's what you're going to be making.
That's what you're going to be doing. Yeah. And no matter how many times you say that you're not, it's still the act of putting a poll kind of signals that. So keep that in mind. This would be the point where we would say goodbye to the normal version of the podcast. But honestly, this episode is turning into a bit of an how to indie, and I don't want to gate the information that we are going to be sharing with everybody. So I think we should just leave this one out as well. We are going to have another one of the state of the industry where we go back to our normal format. So sorry, all of our Patreon backers, we love you. We still give you these earlier. And now that SunnySide's out, maybe we can do more stuff for you all. But anyway, to go back to that, there's one other thing about these bug fixes that I wanted to say. And for us, it kind of happened on its own. But it's working really well for us. And that is to come up with a sprint structure. So once the game is out, you can stop crunching. To be fair, depending on how the situation with the game is, if things are
ideally
really
you're never crunching, but
ideally you're never
reason, with games, it just, as much as nobody wants to do it, we all end up doing it voluntarily.
It's bad. It's not good. But come up with a sprint structure. So how it happened for us is that we ended up doing weekly patches. I don't think we ever talked about this or we planned it.
It was never planned.
Kind of happened, and it works pretty well.
It's a good structure.
The way it works is that we start very slow. Mondays, usually we don't do a lot. We just kind of prepping ourselves for the week. We're looking at the community. We're putting together lists. We're just prepping. Yeah. And then the majority of work happens between Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Tuesday and Wednesday being actually the hottest 2 days of the amount of work. Somehow, again, we don't try, it just happens. And then Friday is the release day of the patch, which we don't actually end up doing a lot of work on either. On the engine, I mean, it's a lot of logistical work of getting the update out, writing an updates for everybody, getting it pushed to everyone. To then get the updates and also kind of be on the lookout in case you made a mistake and to make sure that you can be responsive.
This would actually be with the sprint and the patch structure and everything. You know, if you're going to be doing bug fixing after release, it's a nice thing to wish that you wouldn't be, but you're going to. You know, everybody's.
You might as well accept it.
Yeah, especially with PC games, there are so many variables to a game when you're on PC because everybody's running on a different machine. Yeah. And so before you release, it's just not realistic to think that you're going to get everything. So something that we did that I do highly recommend is creating a beta branch for your game.
That was a very good idea.
So that you
involves the community as well.
Yeah, it involves the community so that you can, you know, it's voluntary, it's open to everybody who wants to do it, and people can test the new things that you're fixing, the new things you're implementing, and, you know, come back to you with pretty quick information. And you can use that as like a preliminary patch. So you push to beta first, let people play with it. Once everybody's happy with it, then you can put it on main and you can consider an actual patch. So it's been a nice structure for us. I don't think we're going to continue with weekly patches forever.
Not forever.
I think I think that's something definitely for like maybe the first month and a half. And then I think at some point we're going to go to
just probably 2 weeks and then it will be a month.
I would say at some point I think we're going to probably go to every 2 weeks and then it'll probably be every month. Because you can't do everything in a week, right? There are some things that are just going to take more time. They're going to require more testing. And so it'll be, you know, a week of actual fixing and then maybe a week on beta branch and then we push. And then there'll be a point where it's 2 weeks of work and then maybe a week and a half on beta branch and then we push. So
especially once you're done with bug fixing. It's definitely going to
expand over time.
And you want to start working on actual content updates, that is when the time is going to get
that's something
longer.
That you want to do.
Yeah, if that is something you want to do, for sure.
Yeah, for
Which
us,
is something that is expected a lot more these days, to be fair.
Yeah, because we have a farm sim, it's definitely expected for us because it's so open-ended. But if you're doing, you know, like a platformer or something, extra content's not the most needed thing. You know, chances are you've got your loop and it's set and it's fine. So I think the question really is, okay, you've done your bug fixing. you set up your community. What's next? You know, you're doing quality of life adjustments. Maybe what happens after that? What happens the month or so after? What's our future gonna look like with SunnySide's? So the next step for us is, you know, we don't know really, but
Console,
the thing you want to do, well, console, yeah, is kind of, but not everybody's going to have that.
Yeah.
But your next step, once you have it running in a way that people are happy with, and you're kind of, you know, turning smoothly, you kind of want to put together a roadmap of like, what are we going to do? Are we going to call it done? Are we going to add content? If we are going to add content, is it going to be free content? Is it going to be paid content as DLCs? What does the content look like? What is it going to add to the game? Who's going to pay for it? Is it going to come from the proceeds, or is it going to be something that maybe your publisher pays for? Or maybe you're happy with the game. Again, let's say it's a platformer. Maybe we want to do a sequel. What does that look like? So once you've kind of got your game set, you then need to look at what that next step is. A lot of it's going to come down to budget. You know, how well did the game do? How much money did you make off of it? And what can you do with that money? Maybe you don't want to make any more games. Maybe you're happy. Maybe you want to take the money and run. And if that's the case, power to you, have fun. If you do want to continue your studio after that, you have to be realistic in terms of, okay, let's say you release your game. Let's say it made $10,000. How far is that going to get you? And how much can you be expecting to make? Because you're not going to make $10,000 every month that it's out, right? Your returns are going to diminish over time. So what are you going to do with that? So can you use that $10,000 for 2 months of development and put out more content? Or maybe you make a paid DLC that's a couple dollars and you have more content that can be sold to continue your income so that you can keep working. So it just kind of depends on what works for you. You know, if you have a publisher, it's possible that your return on investment is going to look completely different than somebody who, you know, published their own game. Some developers are going to ask for a recoup. You know, so you're going to get a certain amount of money in royalties right after release until they recoup. And then maybe it'll flip and you'll get more. Maybe they'll ask for 100% until recoup, which means they're pulling in all of the money until they earn their investment back. And then you make money, in which case it could be 6 months before you see a paycheck for your game.
And if that is the case, you need to see if they're willing to support you during that time or not, because you still need to keep the lights on while the game is out. And if you're not a game dev, if you're just a gamer, keep that in mind, especially for indies. If you see the game is selling 20, 30, 50,000 copies, it doesn't mean that a developer is making any money yet, because you don't know how that back end is set up.
Especially because you've got Steam pulling their amount. You've got publisher pulling their amount. You don't know what bills the developers have to pay. You don't know if they owe money on loans. You don't know what that financial situation is going to be. So to assume that,
and most of the times they can't share it either.
So don't assume, you know, hey, games sold 100,000 copies. Developers are rich. We deserve more content. Chances are that's not how that's working out. So. And as a developer, you know, don't expect a giant paycheck. Honestly, it's not realistic.
Setting up
your game is out.
Disappointment.
Your game is out doesn't mean you're gonna, you know, make $1 million and do whatever you want.
If it happens,
does it happen? Yes. Right. Is it common? Absolutely not. So, you know, you have to. It's kind of weird. You really have to just wait and see how your game does, and you kind of have to wait. And it sucks. You're just kind of keeping your head down, getting this stuff fixed, getting stuff updated, getting stuff where it needs to be, and then at some point you're going to. It is a lot of waiting.
It is a lot of waiting.
Yeah, and then at some point you'll be able to pull your head up and be like, okay, I made this much. Now what? And you know, maybe let's say it is 4, 5, 6 months until you pull anything usable, and maybe you don't have support from your publisher. Well, what do you do then? maybe you need to go find an investment somewhere. Maybe you do need to pull out a loan. Maybe you do need to ask, is this something you want to keep doing? Maybe you can switch to YouTube content and pull an income from there. Maybe you can switch to merchandise. Maybe you can make assets for the Unreal or Unity store to kind of supplement your income in the meantime. So there might have to be things that you do.
Or maybe you can make tiny games and put it on itch or something. Yeah.
Yeah, or making smaller. Yeah. So
if there's one good thing about this industry is that your skill set will go a long way. There's a ton of things you can do. So,
and we know a few developers who like are working for one studio as like a modeler, and they're making their own game.
Yeah, that's
and like this is their income, and then so. Every indie developer is going to be different. And just because you saw something work for somebody doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for you. So it's something to just be aware of as a developer. But yeah, so I mean, for your game, put together that roadmap, look at what your finances are, look at what's feasible. Don't dream too big. Don't set yourself up for disappointment. But if it's feasible, if you've got the money, maybe you make a DLC, maybe you give your people more content. A lot of it comes down to how editable is your system, how easy is it for you to drop in new content,
how strong a foundation it is.
Ideally, you've set up your foundation in a way that adding content is a quick turnaround. And so you can get a nice return for that. There's also another thing to consider that we didn't really talk about, which is supporting your modding community.
Oh, yeah.
Not your moderators, but people who want to modify the game that you put out. Because that's a huge thing.
I'm proud
you need to decide if you're going to support that.
And honestly, I was so flattered when I saw it. We have a Nexus mods page. And we already got a few mods on there, and it's so good. It's to me, I love that, because when I see that, I'm like, people found it compelling enough to want to create mods for it, and So if you can support people modding your game, and if it is something you want to do, we recommend it wholeheartedly. Yeah, go for it. And if there's like one last thing to say, because I think that's pretty much most of it.
Pretty much it, yeah.
Have fun with the community. One thing that I did. Is that I started doing the dev streams on Twitch, and there were people who are coming to the streams. We got like 20-30 viewers per stream, which is quite a lot for Twitch. And there are people, if you're watching, thank you so much for coming, but there are people who genuinely say that they enjoy watching the process of it, because most of the time it's just me blathering about a system, getting really nerdy about it, but there are people who come in and genuinely enjoy watching it. So if you have a community, no matter how small, have fun with them. Share the journey of creating the game with them. You'd find out that a lot of people enjoy that, because there's so much curiosity to see what's under the hood. So don't feel shy about sharing that journey of working on the game and improving it with the community.
As much as you can.
As much as you can.
It's possible you might have publisher deals and stuff where you can't, but if you can be honest with your community, you guys know we say do it. It's better for you to be as honest as you can. Again, you don't have to share everything. You don't have to answer everything, but as much as you can be, that honesty, people are going to appreciate it. And that goes along with letting them see what the inside of the engine looks like, letting them know what you're thinking about when you're creating things. Not only are people curious, but you're helping other developers. What we're doing to try to help developers, there's such a like quietness to the industry. We're all nice to each other. Yes, we all support each other, but I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a lot of people are kind of afraid to show people the inside of their brains, I guess, and what that looks like, and people appreciate it, and it helps. And so as much as you can turn around and help that other indie developer who's got a dream, do it. Support as much as you can. So the last thing I will say is join other developer communities. join those networking groups, join a local chapter of the International Game Developers Association, look at events that are happening in your area, get involved with that as much as you can, because those other developers are going to have such great ideas and they're going to make you better at what you do. So if, once you kind of have that moment to sit up and take a breath and get back to your life after all the crunch and everything, you've now got this thing that you can share with people, and you can say, well, here's how I did it.
And be happy.
So
you shipped the game. That is a monumental task. Don't forget that.
Yeah. That imposter syndrome is out the window now. You've done it. We've done it.
It's out. And with that, thank you so much for listening to us. This was the episode 17 of the Developers and Podcast. Next week, we have another episode of How to Indie with a special guest. Woo! So don't miss it out. It's going to be an exciting one. And if you would like to join our community for Sunnyside, I mean, first of all, Sunnyside is now up for sale. If you would like to go give it a go, it's on Steam. If you're not sure, there's a demo. Go try it out, and if you like it enough, you can buy it.
And we have a merch store now.
We do have a merch store. We just launched that last week. So yeah, it's store.rainygames.co.uk. So go have a look. Especially if you like the stuff in Sunnyside, it's all Sunnyside related. It's all art. It's all art from Sunnyside. And yeah, we do have a Discord community. If you're not in there, feel free to join. We do have a Patreon if you would like to support our efforts as indie devs. Please feel free to do so.
Indie endeavors.
Indie endeavors. And you can listen to the rest of the podcast episodes. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be just in the playlist, and if you're on Spotify, just press next or previous and you listen to other episodes of our podcast. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week on an episode of Hand Indie. Bye.
Bye guys.